Tim, here we are again on Lead Human.
Ye-
Last week we were in the studio at ACAST. This week we're together virtually.
Yep.
It's interesting. I'm really interested in how we explore our relationship through this process of developing Lead Human, our human relationship. In the Tao
Ooh,
of
where are we going with
Leadership.
this? This sounds good.
I know. In my book, The Tao of Leadership, I write, and I try to live balance and harmony, and I value that in our relationship, balance and harmony, not only in our career, in our lives, but balance that I think exists between you and me, balance and harmony, the balance between focus and flexibility, between intensity and fun, and the harmony of having shared goals and expectations while we're at completely different stages in our careers, where I think we're creating for our audience real balance and harmony, and
Sure.
common interests and needs. And I really value that between us and how that's evolved between us. And I hope our audience feels that.
That's nice, Jack. And I totally agree. And to your point about the Tao, right? It said how the two things fit together to make the whole. So hopefully we will fit together, as we go. And so far, I think we have. I've been meaning to ask you. It's been a couple weeks. We're into the year now, but I keep forgetting to ask you. I know you're a big music fan. Did you get your Spotify Wrapped age?
I did not. I got my ChatGPT kind of a year ahead in what it expects for me. I should do that, and what I have been doing, I just watched the Yacht Rock documentary,
Nice.
which does not reflect my life or my music tastes. I'm watching, the P. Diddy documentary. So I'm really into the dynamics of music. I got to do that. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
What was yours? What was yours?
I'm actually an Apple Music person, so I don't have one. But I just found, as we ended the year, and I just kept forgetting to ask you, like everyone, all the platforms were kind of telling us who we were, so Spotify Rap was telling us our age, and your year end with ChatGPT was telling us about how we behaved. And then there's the LinkedIn year review. It's like, who gave the platforms the liberty to tell us who we were? I don't know. Is that what it is now? They're going to just tell us, they're going to sum up our life for us. Is that how this is going?
Who we are, where we're headed, what we're doing. I will tell you that in terms of playlists, I did learn in that Yacht Rock documentary that I am a Questlove fan, and because his playlist seems to be aligned with mine. But that's a really interesting question about how they define us.
Yeah.
We get horoscopes, we get astrological readings to give us, we maybe even speak to mediums about where we're headed now. Is that all going to be turned over to technology now?
Yeah. I don't know. I think, and I would love to go down the Yacht Rock rabbit hole and try to figure out what the hell is Donald Fagen's problem. But that is for another show. So let's go human. Let's leave machine. How about this? We leave machine and we go human.
And we introduce our guest. How's that?
Why don't we kick the show off and welcome everyone. Greetings, humans. Welcome to Lead Human. And I'm Tim Spengler, along with my co-host, the futurist and author, Mr. Jack Myers. And together in about 30 minutes or so each week, our goal is to demonstrate that even though there's so much talk about data dashboards and AI, that the real competitive advantage in business isn't about managing the machine, but it is about unleashing the human potential. Jack, tell us, who is our guest today?
Tim, today's guest leads at the intersection of scale, speed, and humanity. And I'm especially honored to welcome to Lead Human my friend Dave Penski. Dave is CEO of Publicis Connected Media and a member of the Publicis Groupe Executive Committee. leading the world's most influential media organization. At a moment when leadership is being tested, not just by technology and markets, but by generational shifts, by industry restructuring.
Yep.
And Dave works with teams navigating change, rising financial expectations, and the very real human impact of the transformation we're going through. He's known not just for driving performance, which he's done exceptionally well at Publicis, but how thoughtfully he approaches leadership, culture, and people. And that's why he's among one of our inaugural guests on Lead Human, to share with us what it really means to lead humans at this moment, not just manage systems. So I'm pleased, Tim, to be welcoming Dave Penski today. Tim?
Yeah. And I think from the beginning of us talking about putting together this show, Dave's always been around the top of the list because of everything you just said. And I think over the last 10 years, he's probably the leader globally in the media agency space. So that's pretty cool right there. I know he runs 50,000+ people. We'll get into the specifics. I just think it's important to put into a little bit of perspective, because the media agency business has only been around since 1995. I mean, prior to that, all of the media, almost all of it, sat inside the full service agency. So think of like the Mad Men model.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Creative
wasn't
first, media second, the last couple pages of a 30-page deck.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly right. And I was part of that, part of it. And then in around 1995, Sir Martin Sorrell, who was CEO of WPP, spun the media out of both Ogilvy and Mather and J. Walter Thompson to create Mindshare.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, you had a couple independents, right? You had Western Media, you had Horizon, you had SFM, just a couple media-only independents. And other than that, everything sat inside the full-service agency as a second-class citizen, as you said, Jack. And so Martin Sorrell created Mindshare. He named Irwin Gottlieb to lead it. So Irwin was the leader of it. And I think, looking back, Irwin is probably the number one media agency exec in the history of the business, again, starting in 1995. Remember, prior to 1995, there was no Universal McCann. There was no OMD. There was no PhD. There was no Zenith. There was no Starcom. All of these things came after that Mindshare move, that WPP move that Sorrell led. Again, Irwin built that Group M Media into this powerhouse. Since then, I think what Dave Penski has done puts him in the conversation of the next two or three most significant leaders in the media agency space. And it hasn't been a coincidence. I mean, his ability to be ahead of the curve, to bring teams together, to simplify in a way that clients could buy off of it and the teams could get around it, is why they won so much business, which is why they are so big. And I'm looking forward to hearing about his recipes for success when we talk to him.
So welcome, Dave Penski. Dave, thank you for joining us, and let's get started.
Dave, thanks. Dave, so we like to jump right in. The first question, Dave, is a grounding kind of question that we ask everybody. And it's not a question about what you do, okay? But it's more of a question about who you are. So tell us, at the core, who are you? Who is Dave Penski as a human, as a person?
It's a great question. So that's not the usual question I get at the beginning of a business podcast. So what I would tell you, though, I mean, at a very core level, I am a family person. I think that if I look at, I'm sure it's a very, cliche answer to that question, but as that is a huge part of my personal life, has been really important to me, and my family is very important to me. It's funny, I do have a very global job now, and that I've almost more than half my employees are outside the U.S. If you speak to most of my employees, I don't leave the U.S. very often. I had an opportunity to take a big global role many years ago, and I said no. It's really important for me to be home on weekends and be present. I did one year where I think I traveled 340,000 miles. I was home on the weekends, but I would say I was like a shell of myself. So
Yeah, dad, probably.
it's very important for me to be present on the weekends. I absolutely, love my job. People ask me a lot about advice on like, when trying between jobs and picking a job and what I think about things. And I look at it in a way of there's like three parts of things that kind of make you happy in your job. And one of them is, let's not joke around, the amount you get paid does matter. So financial, the job itself, if I could be the point guard for the New York Knicks, the backup point guard for the New York Knicks, I might pick that. And then, how does it fit in your personal life? And it's not about work-life balance. And I think those things change over time. There's a point in my life where, as a person, 85% of my decision was financial, 10 was the job, and 5 was how it fit my personal life. But I'd say probably for the first time in my life as a person, those things are pretty equally balanced. And I do think about that a lot. And I do make decisions about my job based on all three of those things. And my career, and I've obviously stayed a publicist, but I think I've had 20 different jobs as a publicist. But of the reasons I think about like what's important for me, kind of the original as a person, those are kind of the three factors I think about a lot. And I also try to make sure, from my own perspective, that I am a third, a third, a third. And I think it's kind of where I look at, and I often make decisions that are going to make a challenge to my personal life. But I try to work in those in a way that it's very important. And my relationship with my wife and my son is really important, and not just them, but my friends and my family. It's something I think about all the time when I'm working and when I'm making decisions about what I'm doing for a month, for a week, for a quarter, whatever that is. It is certainly a very important part of my daily thinking.
Sounds like somebody who leads human has important as that as an aspect. Um, yes, and I know you're a big sports fan. I did not know you were a Knicks fan, but now we have that forever. This is the
Yeah,
heyday.
it's been tough for most of my life, being born after all of the championships. I've never seen one. I've seen a couple close calls. This year looks promising, but I've said that a few times before in my life and been wrong. So I'm hoping that it's a promising year this year.
Amen. So, as a sports fan, um, do you take leadership lessons either from being an athlete growing up or from watching the great coaches and players? Do you bring aspects of leadership from sports into this competitive environment role of leadership that you have in this marketplace?
Uh, I guess so. I would say from a leadership strategy, I kind of believe in a benevolent dictatorship. So that's probably where I think a lot of great sports coaches. I also have a quote that I don't know why it always sticks in my head from Bobby Knight that was, you know, if money doesn't matter, why do we keep score? And so I do have I like to win. There's no doubt about it. I guess what kind of motivates me from a competitive standpoint. The good thing about this job is you're always competing,
Right.
not always winning, but always competing. And I think that is something that is certainly very important to me. I actually think that most, great coaches, and I've met a few over the years, um, uh, they are great managers. I mean, they're great leaders, whatever you would say. And I think in this version of sports that we're going through right now, which is like much harder to coach in this version of college, this version of the NBA, this version of the NFL,
Sure.
where the players have a lot more say, which is, I think, great for players. I think it makes it even harder to be a leader. I don't think Bobby Knight would be successful in 2025, but the factor of a guy like Coach K that went through all of those years, from a West Point through, coached well into through the Olympics years, and watching Steve Kerr with the Olympic team this year is really impressive. And I do take a lot. And I think it's a great example of great leaders and how to motivate really talented people, because the business that we're in is a talent business. Even in the future of the talent will be the decision maker in AI versus everything else. And I think that talent, how to manage talent, how to keep talent, how to retain talent, is also very important, and it's something that all great coaches are able to do.
Dave, a common thread of great coaches is that they have the trust of their teams, and trust is important not only for your coach or for your leader, but also among the teammates. And Publicis operates at such an extraordinary scale people scale. You mentioned global technology, generational shifts and scale. Your boss, Arthur Sadoun, has spoken a lot about trust.
Yep.
And so, how do you build trust that feels personal when the organization is anything but small? And what have you learned about trust that surprised you once you were in the CEO role?
I think a couple of things. One, someone asked me this. I think at the moment I have somewhere around 65,000 employees that report to me. But I would say from the time I was running Zenith Media, which probably at that time was around 1,000 people, my job hasn't changed tremendously. I've had about 12 direct reports, maybe 15 at times, maybe 9 at times. But so I think that, if you get those right 12 or 15 people, that you trust, that are in the right seats on a bus, doing the right thing, giving the right direction, and very honest with those people, and they're able to do the same with their teams, it doesn't really matter how many people you have. And so where I would say has been very important to me is I am, if you've met people that have worked for me over the years, I am very direct. There's not a lot of sugarcoating. There are some tough conversations for sure, but I think I am very direct. And very clearly, your goals are set for the year. Very clearly, if you hit those goals, you'll be paid, and all of those things which really matter to people are important. And I think that at the direct report level, I think it's important to do that. And I think actually something we started in COVID, which I'm glad we've continued. We actually just did a roundtable yesterday, is going to the larger groups and doing the roundtables and doing the town halls. It matters. I think that for people to hear from you directly and to the larger group, and also seeing how you interact with their boss, and how you interact with my boss. And so the last few weeks we've had we had our 100th year anniversary last year, which is kind of crazy. 100 years, Publicis has had 3 CEOs.
Wow.
And
Wow. Oh, that's interesting.
and so our tour is like a junior CEO. He's only CEO for 12 years. It's like nothing. It's the last we had a 50-year CEO, like a 40-year CEO. This 12 is like a junior. And I think that that type of consistency matters. And I think during COVID was where I think we built a lot of trust, and I think we're going to see another trust going over the next few years. One, the first thing we did during COVID is we had a town hall every 2 weeks with all of our employees globally. We would start at, midnight with Asia. This is my times. There would be one at, 5 a.m. with EMEA. There's one for the Eastern United States, Western United States that would cover both LATAM and Canada. And you had a kind of this rolling day every 2 weeks where we talk to people. And what you'll see on a town hall from Publicis is, we'll answer any question that comes in on return to office, any question that comes in. I mean, you wouldn't believe some of the questions you got during COVID was when we have cities that were in complete lockdown, like Mexico City, like, can I go to my office and get my passport? I have my passport on my desk. I'm like, well, I'm not sure why your passport, but yes. Or I want to go get my chair. I like my mouse pad and I want to get into the office for these ridiculous things. And so I think that we answered every question. We answered the tough questions on raises and promotions. We answered the tough questions on RTO, or the fact that we changed insurance providers, which I don't think any of us realized how much a pain in the ass that was. So all of those things, it's about answering the questions that are hard, not about answering a bunch of teed up questions that are fake. And I think people see people typing in questions and us answering them. And I think that it gives the masses a lot of confidence that, hey, they're answering them. They might not get them all right, but they're at least answering them and being direct. I think that starts with our tour, and I think it's true for myself too. I hope that all my leaders do the same thing. That I think you can get a lot when you're just direct with people and are even if it's bad news, it's better coming out versus the sugarcoating strategy. So it's been very important to be direct to people and just be honest. And people, I think, generally are okay with that.
Arthur and you have also talked openly about leading without certainty and choosing courage over control. That's an interesting differentiation, I think, especially in a day when data is making so many decisions are made around certainty and data. So my own personal experience with you has been that you're very, not only accessible, but you make decisions and you make them reasonably quickly. So how do you personally make decisions when data is incomplete, when the market's noisy, and when the consequences are human, as well as financial.
Yeah, I know it's funny. We've hired a lot of people from other holding companies over the last few years, and I think they've been shocked at how fast we make decisions and how we kind of, there's a few of us that make those decisions, and I think it works very well. I remember I had a really funny conversation with our tour during COVID, and we're both home, and we're sitting there in like June of 2020, and it's not the brightest of days. I think we've agreed to each take. I think he might have taken a 50% pay cut. I think I took a 30 or 40% pay cut we were agreeing to, and we were asking some of our employees to do the same, and it was just like, not a great time. And our tours, we were talking about to do layoffs, and he said something that was interesting, which it really stuck with me. And I'm like, he's right. He goes, I don't want to lay anybody off. He's like, what is either it's going to come back and we're all going to be better and we'll be better off not laying off anybody because this business is going to come back, or we're completely screwed. This whole thing is going to zero. A couple extra 100,000, extra 10,000 people is not going to make a difference if it goes to zero. If it goes to zero, it goes to zero. So what's there to worry about? It's either it's going to get better, or it's going to go to zero. So it was a bit of you're right. And our view is let's hope it gets better, and let's prepare for the future of it getting better. And I think we only lost 2% of our staff in 2020. We did a few layoffs, but there were people that should have been probably fired anyway. And it was really a point of view. And we used to keep track every week of the jobs we saved, and like, how do we make sure we didn't lose anybody, and how we move people from account to account to keep them. And that was a really important thing for us, to not lose as many people as possible versus trying to cut to a cost of, at the end of the day, it's either going to go back up or it's not. And obviously it went back up. And I think that what really helped us for 21 and 22 was taking that position in 2020 that we're not going to lay off 10,000. What's the purpose of laying off 10,000 people? What would that have done? And it was not going to make or break the year by the time you take all the severance costs and everything else. And then, by the way, to hire those 10,000 people back would have cost a fortune in recruitment fees. So it gave us a huge leg up in 2021. When clients were starting to pitch business again, you move business, and like, well, are you staffed? Yeah, we haven't laid anybody off in a year. We have plenty of staff. We have people that can do this work, and I think that was a major change. And then, really, the focus for 22, really 25, is we want to pay out our bonus pool. We want people to be paid fairly. We want to make sure that we're delivering on what our promises are, and like that's a really important thing for us, to pay a higher bonus than everyone else, not for ourselves, and we are also paid less than some of our competitors at a CEO level, but our employees have received a higher bonus pool and a higher bonus percentage than anybody else, and that matters a lot. And that's something that is a real differentiator for us in terms of how we actually make those decisions. So I do think that it's part of it's being a French company, part of it's being some other things, but I think for culturally, it's a really important thing for us.
These are great. It's a great peek under the tent. Really, thank you for sharing, and much to be proud of there. Does not surprise me, some of this success following on based on some of these things you did. I mean, that's just great. All right, let's switch topics just a little bit, but obviously staying on overall about leadership. But how do you sell change? I mean, you guys have famously made some huge acquisitions in the last 5 years. And so that's an integration story. You're incredibly well integrated. Clients tell me you're an incredibly well integrated organization with the complexity that's there. But then there's also the change part. So take that any way you want. How do you sell change to 65,000 people? And how do you, as part of that, the integration in that creates that change?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it starts with on a personal level in terms of how you actually look at change. I mean, I started as a newspaper buyer on Bell Atlantic Mobile 25 years ago at Publicis. So and someone asked me about how do you retrain people for AI. I said, well, Arturo was a copywriter and I was a newspaper buyer. So I think we've figured out ways to improve our and change our careers over time. And I think that a couple of things I think can help on change management. One, having a really strong vision for what the future is going to look like. And so I think that what we have really pushed for, and you'll hear it from us, you'll see when we talk about our vision, so we talk about connected media, we talk about the fact that identity is at the core of it, how we connect paid media to CRM, to influencer, and to commerce, and how that is what we are trying to do. We are making acquisitions to make that work better, and that is at the core of our solution, and we are very consistent with that. I think that the few things that we have done that have dramatically helped change management, the first was going to the power of one model, so that putting really client centricity around decision making. So we have, I think it's about 40 GCL clients, which are 40 group clients, where they each have their own P&L. We don't care if the revenue is going up. If it goes up at one agency versus another, there's no problems. And it's managed client. For those 40 clients, it's very clear that they have a single throat to choke, a single commercial model to follow, and a single kind of bonus strategy, what we're trying to do for that client. So that was really important from a client perspective. The second thing we did to make things work better is move to a country model. So for the majority of our businesses, we work, including the US now, is in a country model, so that if you think about most of our clients, we talk about even our global clients don't all spend their money globally. Most of the money is actually controlled at a CMO, CO level, at a country level.
Right.
And to make our countries work, we basically said, hey, you have half your bonus if you sit in the UK is from how the UK does overall, and half your bonus is how your pillar did. So if you were in media, if you were in creative, if you were in whatever that would be, sapient. And so what the value of this country model, which has really helped, is it's made people want to work together, because you can't get your full bonus unless everyone delivers. And I think by doing it, the deal of kind of all boats are rising strategy is a really good view, and we have enforced it. And there's a saying at Publicis, which I really like, that our second CEO wrote, Maurice, which is, no silos, no solos, no bozos. And, if you use that as your decision-making tree, and I'm not going to say we got rid of every bozo, but we got rid of most.
Repeat that. You got to repeat that. No
silos, no solos, no bozos. And I think by breaking down those silos, and the best way to break the silos down is get rid of P&Ls. So if you think about it, there's a country P&L that makes most of the difference. And then there's 4 to 5 pillar P&Ls per country. That's it. So in the US, there's 5 P&Ls. Some of our competitors have 400 P&Ls in the US. Mm-hmm. And when you get to a decision making where you have 5 P&Ls and those people work well together that run those 5 P&Ls in a country, it works really well. And I think by simplifying it and simplifying that decision making, you're able to quickly motivate people that this is where we're going. We are giving you this as a KPI to your country P&L and your pillar P&L. Go do it. And if people do want to fight between silos, we get rid of them. People want to go on their own and do their own thing, we get rid of them. And we get rid of some of the bozos. Again, we're trying to get rid of all the bozos. It's not easy. We keep hiring them too. So we gotta work on that, but we're doing our best job.
Breaking down silos is one of the major criteria, I think, for success across all companies that have been built up on silos and P&L. So that's been incredibly valuable to learn how you're organizationally structured. Let's segue that, if we can, to the human, to the individual, and what are the human skills inside Publicis and Publicis Media that have become more important for you to want to establish, not only for yourself but also among your teams? And where do you see leaders needing to slow down rather than speed up?
I think a couple of things. I'll tell you a thing that we did, and this was, I think it's not one of the more popular topics right now, but it certainly is still something very important to me, is around D&I. And I think that, when we a few years ago, the entire marketplace decided that D&I was finally important. And it's embarrassing to say that it took something like George Floyd to do that. But I looked at that, I'll tell you how I looked at it for myself and how I looked at it, and it still is true today. And I think it's something that's really important, I think, for leaders and to make it human. So I looked at it as, okay, we need to reevaluate what we're doing on D&I right now. We need to look at it from what is my, as a large buyer of media in the marketplace, as a person who's been in this business a long time and influential in terms of buying media, what can I do from a marketplace standpoint? What can I do? What can I stand up for? What can I do? And how do I help this situation in a more productive way? The second thing is, how do I make myself a better person internally of how do we set the right rules and regulations inside of Publicis so that we're hiring people, how we're helping people. And then on a very personal level, I think what makes leadership important is what am I going to do personally? What am I actually going to do for actual people? Not about I've created some quota or I say well, this is the percentage of media or this is something we're trying to do is. And so what I did for all of the leaders of Publicis Media, at that time I was CEO of Publicis Media, we called Take Four. And every person had to take four. All of my senior leadership had to take four mentees that were from diverse backgrounds and mentor them. And that program still exists today, and
Wow,
we've
cool.
expanded it. And I always have at least four mentees myself, and all of our leadership has to do that. I think it's really important. And so my group meets right now. I just switched. I do every 2 years. I switch. I'm on year 6 now of this. So we have year 5. I guess it's my third group of mentees. We just started, and we meet once a month as a group to work on a group project. The last group we finished a charity that was very near and dear to all of us, the group of us, the mentees and myself. Called Clinic for Kids. This group will find out what we're going to do together. The previous group before that I started with, we did our return to office policy. I worked with them on that and some of our decision making we did around that. And so I always have those. I meet with them as a group once a month, and then I meet with them each one-on-one once a month. And I think that my only goal in those meetings is to get them promoted. And it's not about it's an allyship, yes, but more of it is how do I help them get promoted? And I think that the best way we solve some of the differences and some of the diversity issues in our business is to keep getting people promoted. Because as we have a more diverse senior leadership, it will help solve other issues. And so I know this is something that has been a little bit under the current administration looked at differently. And there's certainly maybe been some overdone things and some decision making where we're spending money on media companies we shouldn't have been doing. But I think in the end, it was good from a strategy standpoint. And we certainly have kept the mentorship program going. And it's something it's important to me. And as most people who mentor other people, you always get more out of it than they do. And so I always get more out of being a mentor than probably the mentee does. It's great for me to always have this focus group of 5 people who seem to tell me the truth, and I've gotten to know them better. And I think it also makes you more human because they go tell other people. And I think it's so if all of our senior leadership, so it's about the top 100 people at Publicis Media do this, you're then affecting 400 people at a time, which starts to really, blossom. And it's something that part is important to me of how do you actually, I think it's really important to take personal responsibility. I think often it's very easy to set some rule or set some standard, and you're not really talking to somebody or really dealing with somebody and seeing it from someone else's point of view. So I think if you get actually involved yourself, it's a great way to be a better leader, and it helps you be a better leader.
Dave, Tim has a wrap-up question, a couple of questions, but I just want to point out, you and I got together a couple of years before George Floyd to talk about programs we called our DEI was diversity, education, and inclusion. And you stepped up ahead of the rest of the industry, not only to support it, but really to be an active internally as well as externally advocate and evangelist for it. And I think when those companies like yours and leaders like you are committed from the beginning and weren't talked into it for political reasons, you also don't get talked out of it for political reasons. So congratulations. That's really valuable and important.
Dave, I want to pay a compliment here also, another one. And I don't know if you hear this one a lot, but it's amazing how you make the complex so simple. I don't know if that's a superpower. You were trained to do it. I've seen you speak before. The complexity of laying out P&Ls around the world. You guys say, oh yeah, of course, that's just how you should do it. I mean, we know the problems at other holding companies with regards to this exact issue. And you say it like as if you're talking to a 12th grader. And it's very impressive because there's so much behind what you just said, but you just made it so simple. It's really interesting to watch you articulate situations.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Really,
really
appreciate it, guys.
Okay, final question maybe, and this has been great. Thank you so much. You clearly are introspective as a leader, and you think of clearly you've been sharing with us, and that's great. Are there other parts of leadership everyone can get better. We're all improving our whole life. What are the areas of leadership that you're focusing on next to become even a better leader?
I think that, although it's fine, I'm happy you think we're perfectly integrated. I would tell you that's something
I hear
that
from clients that they really like that.
we're very integrated. A lot of clients are. I think we could do. I think we could do a better job. I think I could do a better job of that. I think there's, we are making an acquisition a quarter almost. So some are, $1 billion, some are $30 million, some are $3 million. But there are, I think that's somewhere of how to connect with new employees, and how to motivate people coming out of very significant earnouts are always interesting. But I think that I could always be a better integrator into companies. And I think one of the couple of things I think I've learned from it is we need to move people between companies faster. So people that were at Epsilon, that were at Publicis Media, that were at Influential, that were at Disrupt, that were at Adopt, whatever it is, to move them faster. It's interesting. The first big merger I ever did in a reality standpoint was out of the Starcom MediaVest merger with Zenith Optimedia, where we were both at Publicis, but let me tell you, it was before 2016. Those were like enemy combatants. So, and I think at the beginning we were very thoughtful to make sure we had a leadership group of 8. 4 were from SMG, 4 were from Zenith Optimedia. We made sure everyone kind of matched up. And now I can happily say, this is 8, 10 years later, whatever it is, 10 years later it's now. I don't think about that anymore, but probably for 4 or 5 years, I really thought about that. And I think that because it was such a big merger of equals, I think I thought about it a lot. And I think that I need to do a better job of thinking about that as we bring in acquisitions to make sure we're doing the cross-pollination a little bit faster. Sometimes there's earnouts and other things that make it more difficult, but that's something I think I could do a better job of today with our newest employees, our newest acquisitions. Some have gone, they've all gone fairly well, man. I wish I'd been a little hard. If you know the Publicis and more French culture of always challenging yourself, and giving yourself a hard grade probably is the French way. I think that's probably the place that I would do most there. And then I think the other part of it is that what would make me a better leader, but would make me fail on the family side, is traveling to some of our outer offices more. But I've made a decision I'm not going to do that. I think it's I do travel some to our outer offices, but I've been to Asia probably in 4 years, and I go to Europe a few times a year. And I think it would help me as a leader. I don't think it would help me to deliver my original goal I talked about at the beginning of making sure my family comes first. And I think that's something that I really and thoughtful about, but it's something that I've made a decision, and I got to hire the right people and surround myself with the right people to make that happen. But that's something that I do think about, and probably because I had a lot of global leaders here last week, I'm probably feeling some guilt towards as you asked me that question today, Tim.
Right.
Well, it sounds like you're being true to yourself, Dave, and that's number one.
Back to the beginning of what we said. I think we're going to end it there and just say thank you so much for today.
You guys are great.
And I want to thank everyone. Yeah, and I want to thank everyone for listening. If you out there learned something or felt differently about leadership after this conversation with Dave, please share it. Please subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, and help us join this movement to lead human. Again, thanks, Dave, very much. This has been Lead Human.